Hello, welcome to chat where we talk about empathy, employment, and innovation every Wednesday at 2 o'clock with leaders from the staffing industry and the disability community. And today's guests are Meg and Gabe, contingent workforce industry leaders, and truly diversity champions at Bristol Myers Squibb. Welcome, guys. Welcome to chat, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Meg, let's start. See if you can tell us a little bit about what you do, your background, and your passion. I know, but see if you can share that with the viewers.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in contingent labor management for about 21 years now. That's not really what I went to school for. I actually have a degree in geology. So when you're in a car with me and we drive past a large hill or mountain of rocks, I'm going to stick my head out the car and start drilling at it. But contingent labor, I started on the staffing agency side, and then I spent 11 years on the MSP side. And for the last 6, I have been on the client side. So I've kind of made my way through the ecosystem, and I've been at Bristol Myers for the last 2 years. Just completed a merger with Celgene. Actually came into BMS from this merger, and it's been what I've done. It's what I know, and it's what I'm excited about, and it's what I'm very happy to be here talking.
So that with geology background, now that makes sense. As a contingent workforce expert, how to find those diamonds for the organization.
Nice time. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Gabe, please share a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. My background pretty much started like Meg's. It dates back about 20 years. My degree is not in HR, or it started actually as a business degree. I spent the better part of my first half of my career on the agency or recruiting side, then transitioned over to the MSP side for about 9 years. And for the past year or so, I've been lucky enough to work for BMS and to help Meg bring the contingent labor program, or that merged Celgene and BMS program, into what it's grown today.
So this is not a setup, guys. Okay, I'm just thinking loud that Meg is good in finding the diamond, and Gabe, you make sure that it's making business sense with the business background. That's a perfect combination, right? That's how you build the strategy, contingent workforce strategy. But anyway, that's a great combination. Thank you.
We'll go with that. Sure.
Yeah. I'll roll with that. It works for us.
It works.
Yeah. So, guys, as we are, almost kind of over this pandemic, how the pandemic has impacted the contingent workforce strategy at BMS or any other, like overall in the industry as an expert. I'm pretty sure you have experienced very different kind of challenges, as we all have. Just tell us a little bit what's happening in the contingent workforce strategy space.
I think we saw a lot of things that everybody saw. We had to change up a lot of our logistics of how we were going to do things and how we were going to make workers be efficient, effective, and deploy digital identities and laptops. And so there was a lot of those pieces that had to be taken care of. But from a policy perspective, we had to figure out that piece, how to keep them working from home, because our policies didn't permit 100% working from home. But then there was that maintaining the connection piece and ensuring that everybody from home felt, cared for and connected to the larger community, which BMS is very much about our culture and our larger community. And that proved to be a challenge without having our sites and our facilities and our water cooler conversations. We were talking about that in another meeting today. Our meeting occurrences went up by like 25% this year. And I think even our contingent workers felt that too, because we missed that, hey, I saw you in the hall. Can we have that quick conversation? And so we had a very busy time, and our volume has gone exponentially. We have quadruple digits of open positions right now, and that includes our contingent ones too. So it's very, very busy, and we need lots of people to help keep the. Gabe, do you want to touch base real quick on what we had to change for the drug and background?
Yeah, Gabe, if you can share.
Yeah, I mean, from a business process point, we had to be flexible, right? There were instances where people couldn't get to testing facilities, or backgrounds weren't getting completed on time, and so there was the need to be flexible on the business side as well as the staffing agency side. And BMS, in my opinion, really led the way from our leadership all the way down, giving us the autonomy to work and make things simpler in a complicated time, to make things so that the business ultimately got the workers they needed. And in the end, right, it's all about our patients at BMS. And so patients got the material they needed, and development continued. And so that's what we did from a process point to make things simpler.
So things I think still got done, but it was really about making sure our organization had levers to pull to ensure that we were offering options to make sure that those things still got done. So the teams had to be beefed up, and they had to work really hard to get those pieces in place.
Yeah, and you guys touched a little bit on the leadership side. We all know employees are the biggest assets, and in our space, the contingent workforce. And how has leadership pivoted in response to the pandemic, or what is your experience and what you have seen in action?
We're lucky because the culture at BMS is a very progressive one. It's a very inclusive one, and one of the main principles is that we bring our authentic self to work, and that's a top-down message. And during the pandemic, top-down messaging also included self-care, take care of yourself, setting up wellness champions, we're setting up change champions, we're setting up HR pods, so we have a smaller community for you to connect with and understand what you can do. And then our leaders led by example. So they sent out notes of, if you're on PTO, don't document meetings, make sure you're being on PTO. If you're it's a night or a weekend, don't send important emails that can wait, and really just making sure that our entire culture, not employees only, our entire culture understood that this was going to be a time that was hard for everybody, and we needed to have that self component, and our leaders lead the way.
Yeah.
Gab, any thoughts, any addition to that, your observations and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, being new to BMS, I kind of walked into starting right when the New Jersey was closing down, so right when the pandemic was starting. And the very first thing that they told us was to look at ourselves, take the time that we need. People were working all sorts of weird hours just to make sure they were getting done. And our leadership came down and said, everybody needs to take the time. So if you need to take away in the middle of the day, do that. They've gone as far as doing, restful days for employees and our contractors, and mindful Fridays, so people can take those few hours to just disconnect a little bit and recover as we go through and get ready for the next day. So I've been fortunate enough to have an outstanding leadership structure that they really push us to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves.
That's great, and I also have a first-hand experience. Whenever I have attended events at BMS, I have seen that trusted environment, that culture, and that the messaging from the leadership is it's just amazing, because it's very impactful. So when it comes to empathy, and I'm passionate about empathy, so how do you see this connected to empathy, or how empathy is playing the role at workplace, at BMS, or in your own environment when you are working with professionals?
We have such a great story here, and one of the in the unique telling of that self-care story, it's a lot of empathy itself. But when we knew that the pandemic was going to be here for longer than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we immediately put together like a COVID action plan team to understand what we were going to do and how it was going to be addressed. And that included a team to identify the phases of leaving the site, back to the site. And then we put together how we were going to serve our contingent population, our contractor population, our diverse population, how we were going to provide PPE. All of that got starting in March of last year. And so one of the pieces I think that we're probably the most proud of, one of the projects I'm most proud of from last year was the COVID support for our contingent resources. We put in an essential program as well as a pay contingent program. So workers who were displaced early in the year because our buildings and facilities were shut down, we offered pay contingents for those resources that were temporarily displaced. We have sick pay for resources who either have, parents or children who can't go if you're sick yourself. We offer payment for not only caring for the workers themselves, but offering that ability to drive appropriate behavior so they're not coming in or, increasing the contact to further, propagate the disease. And then we also offered the essential. So when we started opening up those essential lines of production, we had resources that had to come back in. And at the time, last March, April, May, it was still very scary. We didn't know what was going to happen. And we were all still kind of coming in from the grocery store and getting, disrobed in the garage and then hosing down. And, it was extreme at that point still. So we offered this premium pay option for the workers that had to go on site. And those are, some of those programs have been sunset because we've got a little handle on things, but the pay continuance with illness is still there. And I think that's a fabulous display of empathy from BMS for our extended work.
Yep. Yeah. Any thoughts from your side?
I think Meg summed it up. The fact that our leadership, again, I think is what really drove it. They're the ones that said, how do we set this up so that people feel safe, right? And that was, to me, how they were going to make everyone feel connected and safe with still doing their work. So the pay continuance, where if you couldn't come into the office, it was understood they were taken care of. And even extending that to the supplier network, they were instrumental in getting that communication out there and really driving home that message that this is something serious, but this is something that BMS is doing to make sure that everyone stays safe and feels safe.
Right. Great. Any thoughts on, or any strategy which you can say it was really innovating? And I know we all are talking about innovation during this time, but any innovative approach which you thought it was impactful or effective?
I think that we are still looking for a bunch of different approaches that we want to carry forward. We kind of dabbled into the AWS workspace with the bring your own device options. Sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. Obviously, we've amended our workforce policies to allow for additional time home. I'm not sure we'll ever move to a culture that's going to be entirely work from home. We just value the face-to-face time with each other too much. But I think we are still looking for the right mix of what those long-term strategies can be that won't just dissolve once the pandemic is over, that have a little bit more staying power. And some of it's going to be trial and error. Some of it might not stick, some of it might not work. But, I think our culture is willing to try it if it's got, practical application and it makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's all about innovation. Is all about trying it out and tweaking it till we make it work. So absolutely, Gabe, any thoughts on innovation from your side?
From an innovation perspective, things have gone as we had hoped. Like Meg said, we've tried a lot of different things. A lot of things were very successful. I think looking at the fact that we were able to change some of the business processes that were hard and fast at one point to be flexible. While it wasn't a true innovative piece, it was innovative to how we brought on contingent labor. And it made for our things to continue to move forward. I'm lucky enough to hear when managers are thankful for our approach. And I can't tell you that I think it goes once, maybe 2 or 3 times a week that we hear from managers saying, thank you for the work that our contingent labor program does, and our partners and our suppliers to continue to drive and get new people into the process for us. So I think innovation kind of circles a lot of different facets for us.
Yeah. And I know, Meg, you are a SIA game changer. So any thoughts on what's happening in so congratulations for that, and thank you for doing just amazing and contributing to the staffing industry. Any new innovation you have seen, observed in recent months, or heard?
I think I learn way more from them than they do from me. I think that we're really on the cusp of some very serious changes for how our industry functions. More and more, I think contingent resources, external resources, the economy is being recognized as the way things are going to happen going forward. And I think there's some changes that definitely will be coming through the structure, pricing, the content, how they're viewed. There's so many pieces that I think in the next 12 months we're going to see differences by this time next year in how we do things. And I don't really have my finger on the pulse of exactly what those next year come to fruition, but I think we're going to see a larger embracing of a full external workforce outside of just contingent labor, sort of coming into the fold and comprising that external workforce versus the management of contingent labor. So I do think we're about to kind of pull it off and expand things out.
Yeah.
Which I think can only be a good thing, because I think the contingent workforce has been a little bit more of a close to the HR, close to procurement, more tightly controlled, and then the external pieces and a little bit more on the outer rims. But I think there's space in the ecosystem to bring them into, and I think there's a lot of us that we can learn from bringing those folks into our world as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It means the pandemic has really taught us a lot of things, and of course has kind of forced us to try different things, which we were not ready for. Any area you can think of which pandemic has given us an opportunity to try it out, and I'm pretty sure you.
It has given us an opportunity to try a lot of different things out,
right?
Including that, the bring your own device, the flexibility in how we do the drug and background screening requirements, where we send people, how we do them, our recruitment timeframes, how we do our interviews and our recruitment and our onboarding, down to our automation platforms. I think there's going to be some very broad sweeping changes. Gabe, do you have a better pulse on this from a logistics perspective?
I mean, I'm trying to think of a good thing here. It's from me, we've done a lot of different, from my view, we've done a lot of different things to make recruiting easier, a little bit more collaborative with the supplier network. They've come to us with a lot of ideas. And so I think from that perspective, we're able to take the better ideas or the best ideas, run them through to our leadership, and they come back and they say yes or no. So I think there's a lot of different things that are coming down the line that will help us make this contingent world a little bit easier from a staffing perspective.
I think some of the other pieces that we can expect to see is, we've been talking about AI for several years, but it hasn't necessarily had a full practical application into our world. And I think that's one of those things that's changing in the next 12 months. We're going to see even more AI come into our world, where we have resume visualization and we have skills gap measurements, and we have a lot more ways to facilitate measurements that are easier plug into our program, to help us kind of make those leaps in the divide into space.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the technology has really kind of, I would say, has been, the innovation in the world of technology has rapidly taken off, and we have seen a lot of new ways of leveraging or utilizing AI and machine learning in practical way, because we've been collecting tons and tons of data for last decade, and now it's matter of how do we leverage that and build that extra intelligence. So talking about technology and talking about innovation, we at Rangam, we are passionate about disability inclusion, and I know that both of you are a great champions of what we do, and what's happening in the disability world and disability inclusion world. So, what is your vision, and what are the activities you have seen under your umbrella as well as overall as an organization?
So for me, Nish, our history goes back probably a decade or so, that where we've been working with Rangam and the Autism at Work to grow, to build a better diversity plan, right? I think we can say that we broke the original mold when we put together our plan at a previous client. The idea was the easier fit was to place somebody into an IT world where they thought that would be the best fit. With working with you and other leaders like Meg, we said, let's try other avenues, like within packaging and labeling. And we had that was probably my first foray into that neurodiverse recruiting. It was incredibly successful. I know that individual excelled tremendously, and then we would get almost monthly updates saying how great he was. And what we were able to do is to parlay that experience here at BMS. I think the pandemic gave us the opportunity to take a look at something that was still kind of new but old to me and Meg, and offer that as a solution to a manager who struggled a little bit with finding just the right person. So working with our Dawn leadership, we were able to work with a partner, and we found a great protein scientist. He's done exceedingly well. And I think for me, that's probably the best experience I've had so far.
So, Gab, let me tell you, and let me appreciate. We truly appreciate the trust you have put in Rangam, both of you and Meg and the whole entire team at BMS and other partners, because this is something, as you rightly said, right? It is new to everyone, and we are constantly learning and constantly enhancing and improving our strategy so that we can really tap into untapped talent. So thank you for giving us an opportunity to partner with you. And so tell us your thoughts on, how do you see the future? Meg, maybe you can share. How do you see the future for people with disability, just in general? Some of the trends, because I know you appreciate all our efforts and all overall efforts happening in the D&I space and disability inclusion.
I do, yeah. I think more and more companies are going to start setting up their employee resource groups to making them just resource groups, so that you can have overall participation from your entire workforce, including the extended workforce, because there's a different lens there that they can kind of bring in and make a little bit more visible for other people to maybe. And as we bring in disability lenses, if we bring in other groups and say, this is my lens, let's look through it and make some of these pieces a little more commonplace in the everyday workplace. I think we will start to see a little bit more of a shift. We see more and more jobs kind of be opened up as channels and opportunities to bring a different lens in. Because when you look through that different work, you see things from a different perspective. You see things from a different perspective. You kind of see different solutions to different problems. And we've all seen the reports and the articles about diversity being kind of the key to successful functions inside a program or a company, and how it really just drives so much more collaboration and innovation. So I do think that having our contingent program open up to be a channel to bring more of those opportunities to this group of diversity, equity, and inclusion, to facilitate bringing them into the workforce, and even facilitate some of those conversions to the PE position is a tremendous stepping stone as we move forward. And I think that that's going to become much more commonplace, not just
I agree.
No, I 100% agree. Gabe, if you can, you have any thoughts on, because the contingent workplace is like it's untapped by this talent. So please share your thoughts. How do you?
I mean, I think it's a tremendous opportunity. It's a piece of that talent ecosystem that we really haven't looked at too seriously. And I think the availability of the talent that's out there is substantial, right? And it's just a question of teaching the right ideas behind it, and making sure that everyone is set up for that success, from the leadership on down to the supplier to the worker themselves. I think the lessons we've learned over the last year or so in some of these placements that we've done are really setting up contingent labor to tap that ecosystem, that little part of it, and be incredibly successful and drive new talent into companies like BMS or outside of BMS.
Yeah. But I think even in this process, though, Gabe, we've learned lessons in the last year. And Nish, some of them have been ones that your team has taught us, which is it doesn't necessarily work in this space to say, I have this job, find this person for this job. Right. Yeah, what works better is if you say, all of our contingent jobs are going to be opened into this space, and maybe this group of resources might be uniquely qualified to fill some of these jobs, even if they don't have all of the buzzwords into their resume, and the resume parsing may not work. There might be some opportunities in there if we really dig in and pay a little bit more care and attention into matching the right candidate into the right job. And that, I think, is a piece that's going to require a little bit more diligence in getting right, because it's a different lens. We have to look at it a little bit differently.
So important. That different lens is the key, right? And as we always, what we've been hearing from the disability community, that it's not that every individual on the autism spectrum has different abilities, different strength, and different weaknesses. Our goal is, how do we help identify their strength and tap into, because it's a spectrum. And as you know, Rangam's mission is to promote employment for everyone, right? And we know that our job is to match the candidate's strength with the right job. Now, so instead of just identifying one or two jobs and making those matches, some of the things and strategy which we are partnering with our employer partners is, you rightly said, Meg, the opportunity is endless. It's just huge opportunities. It's all up to us how we tap into this opportunity. In fact, interestingly, you mentioned something about AI and machine learning. We've been working on something, some technology module, where just imagine if we can identify those disability accessible jobs and help hiring managers say, okay, these jobs, there are possibilities that we might be able to find the talent. Would you be interested? And that's how we get their buy-in. And that's truly the kind of the opportunity for scaling up this type of initiative. So we thank you again for your leadership and some of those great things. You are, I would say, willing to take, try it out. I think that's what is very important when it comes to disability inclusion. So we thank you for that. To end on a positive note, it would be great if you share some strategy which you really felt that you were able to accomplish something, and it was very innovative. Any strategy, any things to conclude our today's session? We have 1 minute, so if you can share that would be great.
my favorite story is still the COVID project that we did with the continuing K for our resources. I think that probably is something I'll keep in my top 5 proud list as I move throughout my career. Putting something like that in place, to me, it felt groundbreaking. It wasn't something I've done before, and to be put in a position where I was able to help something like that get into fruition was epic.
Agreed. Agreed.
Anything you can add, Gabe, to that that project? Any little bit?
I mean, I think Meg summed it up. The empathy, right? That's the model of today that was shown towards the contractor base is really what I'm taking away, right? There were a lot of companies out there who just did the furlough and that was that, right? That was the business model that they took. BMS broke that and said, we're going to take care of our workers. And to me, that's the story about the pandemic for me. It's how we took care of people and we didn't treat them as numbers. We treated them as people.
Yes, that is so important in anything and everything we do, right? Day in and out. So guys, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and thank you for sharing some of the latest and greatest things happening in contingent workforce world. And thank you for being champion for people with disability and giving us an opportunity to serve you and partner with you. So thank you for that. And again, wishing you and your family all the best. Stay safe, healthy, and thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Nish.
No problem, Nish. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and we will see you all next week, same time, same place, and we will continue our conversation on employment, innovation, and empathy. Thank you again, and thank you for joining us today. Take care. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.